Hi YouTube, this is Lucky Man Survival here, and today we're going to be talking about what is prepping and why we do it. Alright, now some things we need to think about when it comes to preparedness is that we're not preparing for death, we're preparing for life. And life likes to throw curveballs at us. So when we're talking about preparedness, we need to think about the things we can do to mitigate problems in our own life, whether it be things like natural disasters, economic issues, job loss, or the inevitable SHTF. But sometimes when we think about preparedness, we think about the worst case scenario. But in some cases, it's just something as simple as a blown tire, or your phone dying, or something as simple as that. So we have to think about ways we can mitigate problems in our own life through preparedness and self reliance. Now, to start off, we're going to talk about some things that we can stock up on to help us in our journey of preparedness and to help us in life, no matter what life throws at us. First thing we're going to talk about is food. All right, we can only live about 3 weeks without food, but food is the one thing that takes a lot of time to regenerate, whether you're growing a garden or you're doing something simple in your life like stocking up a pantry with canned food or freeze-dried meals or something of that nature. Now, when it comes to food, there's always going to be a line that you have to draw in the sand. Are you going to have a 3-day supply of food, a 3-week supply of food, a 3-month supply of food, or something of that nature? When you're talking about food, you have to think about your entire family. The average human takes in, for a female, about 1,800 calories a day, for a male, about 2,000 calories a day, and for a child under the age of 12, about 1,500 calories a day. So when you're thinking about food, you have to think about one, being able to intake enough calories for yourself to sustain. But another thing we have to talk about is the longevity of the food. We don't want to go and buy a bunch of salad or things that are going to go bad in your fridge in a day or so. You want to try and prepare yourself with food in your pantry that can last a few years and are shelf stable. Now, when we're talking about food, especially in your pantry, there are some things you want to talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is having nutrient-rich food. If you take rice and beans, just like every person in the preparedness community talks about, you are actually getting a complete protein. But I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we don't want to sit there and eat nothing but rice and beans for the entirety of a bad situation. So being able to stock what you eat and eat what you stock is a very good way to make sure that you are having a constant flow of food, something that's not going to upset your stomach, and things that are making you feel more at home and more like everything is okay because you're eating what you're used to eating. You don't want to go from living in a vegetarian diet and then switching over to having food in your pantry that's nothing but meat and potatoes. Now, same thing goes for someone who eats unhealthily but has only things stocked that are healthy. If you eat junk food all the time, but then in your pantry you have vegetables and fruits and things like that, you really want to start including that into your diet now so that if you ever had to get into your pantry to actually begin eating that food, your stomach and your body doesn't have to try and have a period where it has to get used to that food. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is water. Now, you can only live 3 days without water, and even after one day, you're pretty much useless. Now, water is something that is bulky and hard to store, but it is something that is completely vital, not only for cooking and hygiene, but also something your body needs to survive. So getting things like the 6-gallon igloo water jugs or the water canteens or even a water catchment system, things of this nature will help you in your preparedness journey and be able to allow you to keep up a lot of water in your home or in your property so that you can use it for whatever it comes. Now, a good rule of thumb to live by when it comes to water is 1 gallon of water per person per day. Now, if you have a family of 3, that's 3 gallons a day. So you really have to take into consideration that you want to be able to re-up your water supply whenever you can, and you want to try and find a way to reproduce that water, whether it be a rain catchment system or even knowing where water sources are in your area so that you can go and gather that water. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is shelter. You have to think about what your home provides for you. Temperature regulation, a roof over your head, and protection from the elements. Now, for a lot of preppers, they will also go a step further and get things like tents, maybe a secret bug out location, or places that they can go to protect themselves against the elements and from all things bad in the world. Now, when you're talking about shelter, you want to protect yourself against the elements and from the other things in the world. So, talking about shelter, how we're going to do so is getting things like tents, being able to contain a power supply in your home so that when you are at your house, if the power goes out, you have a way to generate power or at least a way to heat your home. You can use things like the Mr. Heater Buddy or something as simple as getting electronic blankets to keep yourself warm, getting lots of blankets and pillows, and being able to protect yourself against the elements, especially in something like a winter power outage. You know, we talked about this in our original video, that there was a Texas power outage a few years ago that took the lives of many people because they weren't prepared in their home for elemental issues that were going to arise when it came down to negative temperatures without power. So that is something that you want to prepare for in your home, whether it be things like blankets, pillows, hand warmers, and things that can help you with keeping your body temperature regulated and keeping yourself protected from the cold, the heat, and all of those things. Now, when we're going to be talking about medical next, and when it comes to medical, you have to think that the average person in their home may have a medicine cabinet with some ibuprofen, maybe some Tums or Tylenol, but when you're thinking about preparedness, you have to think about if you can't get medical help that is needed for yourself. So trying to get some things in your house to protect yourself, things like ibuprofen, Tums, anti-diarrhea medication, Pepto-Bismol, things that are a little bit more shelf stable and things that you can keep for a long time in case you need them. Because let's be honest and let's face it, when it comes to emergencies, you're not always going to have access to hospitals or medical attention. So things in your life like that, you want to be able to prepare by having a good stocked medicine cabinet, maybe having some gauze and bandages, band-aids, things of that nature. Or if you want to go a little bit more extreme, you can have things like personal IFAKs, trauma kits, and things that may be able to help you sustain yourself in case of a serious or dire emergency where medical help may not be available to you, and you can try and protect yourself against that very dangerous situation that could have been fixed by something as simple as having gauze or maybe a tourniquet. You know, if you think about a power outage, if you were outside cutting wood and you cut yourself, yeah, on an average day you can go to the hospital and you can get those stitches. But if something were to happen and the roads were closed and you couldn't access getting to a hospital, maybe having something to protect yourself from that issue could take you a long ways. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is self-defense. And I'm not really going to touch on this topic too much, but when it comes to self-defense, you should always do as much as the law allows you to in your area. You want to protect yourself to the fullest extent of the law. Now, here in the United States, we are allowed to own firearms, and we are able to keep self-defense items on us. In some states where it's concealed carry or open carry, these laws allow us to defend ourselves in everyday situations. But of course, if you're listening to this and you're in another country, you always want to do as far as the law will allow you to do. So, when it comes to self-defense, you have to really take yourself into a situation where you may need it. So the average home should have a firearm, or at least some way to defend themselves, and maybe even get some self-defense training. When you're talking about self-defense, it is your duty. It is up to you to be your first responder and to protect yourself and your family. That is your job and your duty to do so. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is energy. Now, in this day and age, every single person has a cell phone, laptop, and probably some other form of entertainment that comes from an electronic device. And being able to keep those things charged, whether it be a power outage or something of that nature, you always want to be able to ensure that you will have those items available. So you can get things like solar power banks. You can get things like solar generators that can actually produce and store energy so that you can make sure that those things are charged and that even in some situations, be able to use them to use electronics that can help you stay warm during a winter power outage, like an electric blanket. But energy is so vital to our survival nowadays because the average person would not know what to do with themselves if all of a sudden their refrigerator stopped working. But luckily, in our day and age, there are things that exist in this world like generators, solar generators, or even something as simple as a power bank that can help you keep the things that are important to you charged and powered up. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is PPE, or personal protective equipment. Now, we all lived through the 2020s, and trust me when I say, no one saw COVID coming. But having things to keep yourself safe, whether it be hand sanitizer, maybe some nitrile or latex gloves, face masks, eye protection, and for some people who like to do projects on their own home, maybe a hard hat, sturdy gloves, and things that can keep you safe and protected from not only things like viruses and things more on the medical side of things, but also to keep you safe when working on things at home. You know, the average person isn't going to cut something with a chainsaw and not be wearing eye protection. So having those items in your home is always a good thing to stock up on, so that if something like that arises, you have the personal protection you can to keep yourself safe from any situation, whether it be medical, viral, an outbreak of some kind, or if you're just doing some work around the home and don't feel like jamming your thumb with a hammer. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about stocking up on is going to be hygiene products. Now, hygiene is something that we have to take very seriously, because the reason why us as a world nowadays don't see as much sickness and dire health problems is because of how hygienic we have become as a nation and as a world. And another thing that we have to focus on is our hair and our body. So stocking up things like bars of soap, hair conditioning, hair shampoo, and things that can help us stay clean in a day-to-day life, especially if something like SHTF happens. You have to make sure that we are able to keep ourselves clean in those situations, because our natural hygiene is going to go down. You know, we may not have running toilets. So being able to keep yourself clean and sanitary is a very vital part of preparedness. Even keeping things stocked like toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental hygiene, especially in an SHTF situation, is a very, very dangerous game to play. If any one of you has ever had a toothache and then all of a sudden really needed to go to a dentist, imagine if you couldn't get to that dentist. So keeping your hygiene, especially dental hygiene, up is very vital in a survival situation and in everyday life. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is self-care products. Now, this one is a little bit more correlated towards the ladies out there who need to keep up on self-care products like tampons, pads, and things for their feminine hygiene products, but also for men like deodorant, shaving cream, razors, things to keep yourself clean cut, and also keep yourself from growing ungodly hair that none of us really want to deal with. With women, you have to think that every month you are going to have your menstrual cycle. So having the proper stuff in your home stocked up for maybe a month, 2 months, even things as far as a year, isn't a big financial burden, but could really protect you against any hedging of problems that you may run into, and always making sure that you have those products on hand in case you need them. For men, very similar. Having things like deodorant, maybe shaving cream, razors, things to protect against razor bumps, acne, things of that nature. We have to keep those things very, very well thought of and very well protected so that we don't end up getting infections or anything of that nature. Now, the last thing we're going to be talking about for things to stock up on is going to be ways to cook your food. Okay? Now, a lot of people think that they're so used to walking into their kitchen, turning on their stove, and being able to cook food. But what happens if the power goes out? What happens if natural gas gets cut off? How are you going to feed your family? There are things that are available on the market today that you can absolutely use to keep yourself fed. So some of the things on the market that you can use are things like a solar oven, which seems a little offbeat, but it is something that can absolutely be used. Or things as simple as a Coleman propane grill, or even a charcoal grill. Having extra ways to cook your food and ensure that you can feed your family is probably one of the utmost important aspects of your preparedness when it comes to home preparedness, or just preparedness in life itself. There is 100 different methods on the market today that you can use for cooking in your home. Things from butane stoves, propane stoves, or even something as simple as cast iron cookware on a fire. You have to think that there are many ways that we can cook, especially if you're doing it outdoors. Things like rocket stoves, or just getting an open fire going, getting a metal grate, and being able to cook on it like that. Now, we have to talk next about the things we can do to better ourselves on our journey of preparedness. Now, of course, when we're thinking about preparedness, it's all about survival. But what is the key to survival? Is prolonging our lives as far as possible. So there are things that we have to consider in this genre that we have to cover to make sure that we are staying as healthy as possible and we are getting the best version of ourselves we can. So things like getting healthy, going to the gym, eating correctly, being as healthy as you possibly can will help prolong your life and give you the best possible version of yourself in case something really did happen. You know, you hear in a lot of survival videos out there that if you're not in shape, you're screwed. Now, of course, I have to sadly agree with that, because someone who is not in good health, or maybe someone who has medical conditions, those are obstacles that they're going to have to overcome in a survival situation, and things that may make it difficult for them to live a long and happy life. The next thing we're going to be talking about is preparing your home and your vehicle for weather events, SHTF events, and regular repairs. I feel that being a homeowner or someone who is living in a home, you need to be able to repair things in your home. Having the proper tools, hammers, screwdrivers, drills, things of that nature will always help you with being more prepared. I think we've all been there when we were trying to hang a picture on the wall and didn't have a hammer to do so. But imagine if a weather event happened and a tree came through your wall. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that situation? Having tools at your disposal will always give you a better chance of handling a situation without having to pay an enormous amount out of pocket for someone else to do the job for you. Another thing is weather events with your vehicle. Now, we do here in Lucky Man Survival live in southern Utah, and we do get a lot of snow. So being able to prepare our vehicles and our homes for winter problems is a very big to-do on our list every year. Some things that we keep in our vehicle to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe on the road are things like emergency water, emergency food, maybe a way to heat yourself or your car, maybe a way to get your car back on the road, like a spare tire, tire chains, or something just as simple as a blanket in your back seat. Being able to keep yourself safe in a winter environment, or if we wanted to reverse that and talk about a summer environment, is keeping yourself temperature regulated and being able to keep yourself safe while you may be waiting for a tow truck to arrive, or if a tow truck is not going to be arriving, how to get yourself back on the road and home safe. So, in another video, we will be covering weather events with your vehicle and your home, but this is just a general overview that we're talking about today in this video. Learning survival skills to help with both outdoor survival and urban survival. Now, when we talk about this, a lot of people in the community will know it as bushcraft skills or just standard survival skills. But I feel like both of these are very important for the individual to learn, because not only is outdoor survival something that, 100 years ago everyone knew, but you also have to think about situations where you may be out in nature when something bad happens. And knowing how to get yourself out of the situation or being able to survive until help comes will help you in that situation. Another thing is urban survival. Just a few years ago, we had riots going on in every major city in the United States. And a lot of people didn't know how to get away from that situation. So, learning about evasion tactics and learning about how to protect yourself in an urban environment will help you keep yourself acclimated to any bad situations you may get yourself into. And learning how to evade those situations, protect yourself in those situations, and signs to look for problems are going to help you in your journey of preparedness. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is self-reliance. Homesteading, food preservation, gardening, off-grid setup, and animal husbandry are all things that are a main staple when it comes to homesteading. Now, the average prepper's major goal is to get to a self-reliant aspect where they are in control of their life, their finances, their food, and their health. And getting to that level is going to take some time, but if you ever feel that that is something you are looking into, there are plenty of videos on YouTube to teach you how to do so, and learning how to become self-reliant is the ultimate goal for anyone who wants to have true freedom in their life. Being able to homestead and have animals and a garden and things that you can eat so you don't depend on the grid to do so is going to be an absolute necessity in the future for yourself. Now, off-grid setups are also another thing that we're going to be talking about in other videos, but today we're just going to be talking about some little things you can do for your house to get yourself self-reliant, like having a backup power generator. Having a way to power your home is a vital aspect in protecting yourself against natural disasters and anything economic that may come your way, like having your power shut off or something as simple as a power outage. Now, when we talk about homesteading, we have to think about what is the goal of homesteading. The goal of homesteading is to get yourself to a point where you are not dependent on anything in the grid to keep you and your family alive. Now, another thing that we're going to be talking about is self-awareness. Now, this is usually going to be more in a public setting. Now, the average person, when you see them in public, have their phones in their faces and they have no idea what's going on in the world around them. But being self-aware and aware of your surroundings is a vital aspect in keeping yourself safe and not getting put into a bad situation because you didn't see something coming. Now, a lot of men out there will agree with me that when you go into a restaurant, the first thing you're going to do is sit in a place where your back is facing a wall and your face is fronting to the front of the house, whether it be a restaurant or a movie theater. Most people, especially people with self-awareness, are going to have a more strategic strategy to protect themselves against anything that may come arise in the area that they're in. Now, when you're talking about it, you have to learn a little bit more about self-awareness, and there are plenty of videos to teach you that on YouTube, and we will be covering that in another video. But this, again, is just an overview of what we're going to be talking about in our channel and kind of getting you an idea of things that you need to work on for yourself. Now, the final thing when it comes to preparedness is building a community. Now, a lot of people, when they're starting out in preparedness, may feel alone in the situation, feel like people are judging them, or feel like they are alone in their ideologies that are going on around them. When I first started out in preparedness, everyone thought I was crazy until things like COVID happened, and they went, wow, maybe you're onto something. But I promise, and I can confirm this to be true, there are people like you out there. And creating a community is a really good way to not only have someone who will have your back, but to create a community of people that you can trust and help you on your journey. Whether it be a mutual assistance group where you guys come together and work on protecting each other, learning from each other, and growing as a community, or if it's something as simple as having friends at a range that will help you learn things when it comes to firearms, or maybe even joining a cooking class and learning how to grow in that way. There are many ways you can do to build a community for yourself, but you have to be open to the idea of having several people. The lone wolf ideologies is not going to work nowadays. The most you can hope for is to have a community of people that you can trust and you can defend and protect with your abilities, but also have people have your back as well. When it comes to communities, you have to think about how are we as a community now. Most people don't have extensive friends. The what they call nuclear families are kind of a thing of the past. But having people that you can depend on is an amazing thing for your journey in preparedness. And having someone that you can trust and look to for advice, guidance, or even just help in everyday life is a great way to build yourself in your journey of preparedness. Now, we are going to be talking a little bit in a future video about why prepping is important to us and things that we prepare for. So keep your eyes out for that, and you guys have a great rest of your night, and thank you again. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.